This message is for the people who are in a position of counselor or advisor or even supervisor or manager. This is just a word of advice out of love. Giving a general answer to an individual problem can be dangerous. I know sometimes you may get caught up in the volume of people who need you. It seems like a bit much. So you get into this mode after a while where you feel you could just give the same answer to every person who comes to you with a problem. And that can be very dangerous. You probably become so burnt out behind people needing you that you just say any old thing to get them off your back. But that person is going through crisis, and each crisis is different. And that requires undivided attention. Don't get me wrong, I know it's a demanding position to be in, especially if you're some kind of spiritual or psychological counselor. People don't realize how much emotional power that you take on during the day. You see client after client after client after client. You talk to client after client after client after client, and everybody has an individual story, and they're looking to you for guidance. And then the amount of pressure there is, because they could be in crisis mode at that moment when they come to you. It's a lot of stress. However, this is a position that you've chosen. That's how come being in a position like that is not designated for everybody. A lot of people have been in situations where they've seen people who were bad spiritual leaders, bad counselors, bad managers. They were bad because they were looking at the position and they didn't look at what kind of responsibilities it entailed. And when they got involved, it was too much for them. But their pride did not let them leave it alone. And eventually they wound up out of the picture, because their peers see that they're doing a rotten job. They're not handling it properly. And the number one thing these people do that leads to their downfall is they'll take an individual situation and apply a generic answer. And that person actually runs with that and winds up in more trouble than they were before. See, bottom line is that if you're going through something, it's not going to be as important to everybody else as it is going to be to you. There's only two individuals involved in your problem that know the severity of it. That's your Creator and you. You may have someone around you that could be close, that can understand the intensity 99% of the time. But that's all you're going to get. You're not going to get that 100% attention that you're going to get because it's your problem. You see what I'm going with this? I mean, it's kind of hard for me to verbalize, but I think you get the picture. Basically, when I was told when I was little by a relative of mine, nobody's going to care much about your shit as much as you are. It doesn't matter if you marry them or whatever the case is. You can have a husband or a wife, they're with you through and through. But they're only going to understand 99% because they're not living in your head. Not every single second of the day. They don't know every single thought that you have. Not every single one. I'm sorry. I mean, I know if you're in love and everything is wonderful, but there are a lot of minutes in a day, people. It's like 1,400 minutes in a day. So you mean to tell me your partner knows every single little thing that you think all day long? No, they don't. No, they don't. And I'm not saying this to discourage you. The truth is the truth. People are different. So if it breaks your heart to hear that, I'm truly sorry, but I'm just being realistic. And I'm not saying this to burst your bubble or anything else. Love on. If y'all tight, love on. But I mean, your thing is not that strong if you just let a stranger like me all of a sudden turn your head upside down just because I told the truth about it. Then your thing is not as strong as that you appear to make it to be. You have some issues. Each individual person is different. And sometimes we all go through problems. The general situation might be common, but that doesn't mean that you have the right to give a general answer every single time because you're overwhelmed. You signed up for this. You signed up to be the go-to person. So don't turn around and get all stressed out because you got a whole lot of people coming to you. Put yourself in that position And I get calls from people all the time, friends, relatives, the whole 9 yards, talking about how they're so stressed out because the people are coming to them for this, that, and the other. Let me tell you something. They're coming to you because you put yourself in that position where you wanted them to come to you. And most of you sat there and advertised it. That's how come when you get into these situations, don't get so caught up in the whole leadership role. See, you get hypnotized by the fact that you're a leader. You get hypnotized by the fact that you're in a source of power. Those are the two things. But see, you didn't think about the responsibilities associated with that. They say with great privilege comes great responsibilities. It's true. You think these people in positions of power and whatnot, you think everything's all gumdrops and lollipops. It's not. Some of them are working harder than they did before they even got in the position that they're in. The only difference is that before they were doing something that they had to do, and now they're doing something that they want to do. So the pressure is not that bad as far as them working so much. It doesn't bother them because they're doing something that they want to do. They're using their gifts. And it doesn't feel that bad to work 10, 12 hours a day. But when you're doing it for somebody else, that's a problem. But they still have a lot of responsibilities, especially if they're in a position of leadership. So some of y'all need to be kind of careful when you have people who are in delicate situations and you're in a position where you counsel or you give advice or whatever the case may be. And the first thing you want to do is give them a blanket answer because so-and-so from last week had the same problem. First of all, you weren't half listening. Because 9 times out of 10, this second person who came to you, their story was not exactly the same as the other person. You kind of tune them out after a while because you're partially burned out. So you got to be careful when you're counseling people. Be very, very careful. Now, I'm going to be expanding my operation where I'm going to be dealing with more people. And I'm trying to take this all into consideration because right now God is speaking to me and He's trying to prepare me for different scenarios. These things haven't physically happened yet, but He's trying to mentally prepare me. So this came to mind this morning because I was watching another spiritual advisor on YouTube, and he kind of touched on that a little bit. And I had to think about it. I was like, okay, I'm looking at embarking on this other venture in regards to advising, and I need to think about all of the pitfalls as well as the triumphs. I've got to think about the whole package before I go into this so I can have an idea of how I'm going to pace myself, because a lot of people in these positions, they don't pace themselves, or they're involved in some kind of organization or employer where they don't allow them to use their gifts to their full potential because of their rules and regulations. You see that a lot of that in like institutional situations where you have psychologists and stuff like that and social workers and things that are so overwhelmed with cases that they can't give their full attention to each individual person, and that person takes it to heart and figure they don't care anything about them. It has nothing to do with that. I'm going to do another audio talking about the social service system, because when I was working with some of the ladies in the homeless shelter, a lot of them had situations where they were trying to get their homes back together, get their children back and everything else. And there was just a lot of drama about that. And I learned a lot about the insights of the system. So I think it was kind of help some of you ladies that are getting assistance right now to help you understand how it works. Because I think a lot of you are a bit misguided as to, what it's about. I'll do that a little bit later. But the bottom line is that if you put yourself in a position of leadership, or you want to be a spiritual guidance, or anything having to do with dealing with people's emotions and situations, and folks are coming to you at a pace that's very, very rapid, the first thing you need to do is kind of scale it back to a point where you can actually give your full attention to the situation. Because when you're counseling, that's the number one rule. When you're counseling someone, you have to give them your undivided attention. That's the number one rule before you even start the session. You have to have that mind frame where it's all about them for the next 30 minutes or the next hour. You've got to be laser focused on that person. You can't be distracted and have other stuff going on in your head and your environment. It's not going to work, because that person is already at a heightened sense of emotion. So they're going to pick up the fact that you're distracted, and they're going to look at that as a form of rejection. And that might be the last time you see that person, hating to be cruel, but that's the truth. And that takes a lot of emotional energy. It takes a lot of dedication to do that. And if you got too many people on your plate that are dependent on you, you're getting burnt out. So you have a tendency, when you get burnt out, you have a tendency to tune people out. And that can ruin somebody's life. So before you embark on the journey of saying you're going to be an advisor of anything, or you're going to be involved in someone's life on that level, you better forget about the superficial situation about, oh, I'm going to be a leader and all these people are going to look up to me. No, that's that superficial bullshit. That's not the crux of the matter. That's not the meat and the potatoes, okay? That's just the outside stuff. That is so insignificant compared to the duties involved with that position. The duties override all that. And if you're really all about your gift and your talent, you're not worried about those things anyway. You're more concerned about offering the help. And the mission is not easy. And I don't know why I had to need to say that. Like I said, the Lord's talking to me and dealing with me in regards to different things as far as me trying to expand my operation and utilize the education and the gifts that I was given a while back and that I've been sitting on. So he's trying to open up avenues for me in different ventures of how I can exercise those gifts. And he's starting to show me some of the drawbacks and things to be aware of. And I thought I would share that with you. So I'm going to let you guys go to your business, and I'll talk to you next time.